Hello guys, welcome back, and in this lesson we are going to consider positioning and floating. So as the name suggests, positioning is just the way you position, of course, the elements in your page. So we start with positioning and then we'll jump into floating. So without further ado, let us dive in and see how. So I'm going to create two divs here. This should be now easy for you because we have gone through a lot of things, and now I believe you are able to understand most of the things that I'll just be writing. So for now, let us say box one for this div, and then I'll just give this an ID of box one, and then I'll duplicate this quite fast. I'll give this the second one, box two. I'll come here to our guy. I'll say I'm gonna style the divs, and I'm gonna say that I need them to have a width of maybe let's say 300 px, and then I don't know, we can say maybe the height again, and then I can just use a margin here. Margin, I can say 20 px. Can also give a border. Can remember we can use a border shorthand by saying 2 px, and I want it to be solid, and I want it to be red, like that. The other thing I can do, I can say, let's see, I can say text align center to align the text at center. We look at text alignment later, but for now, let me just use this and say center like this, and we are good to go. All right, the text is centered. Now let me give a margin top, or rather padding top. I'll say maybe 20 px, like that. And then if I go back, now we are good to go. So we have our two divs here, and then let me reduce the height just for the sake of help us to see what. Let me just reduce the height and the weight to be 50-50, just to be able to see them through. All right, that is fine for use. So positioning, they are used to position the elements in the page. So the first guy that we are going to look, the static position. By default, this element, the way they are positioned here, they are positioned using a static position. So when you declare an element in your page, you don't need to define the static position because that is what is used by default. But the second guy that I want us to consider is what we call relative positioning. All right. So for example, if I say now I want to use box 2, and if I take box 2 now and I say the position type that I want is going to be relative, what that means is that position this element from its original position. All right. So the original position of this element is somewhere here, right? Here now where it is being shown. So I want to position this element from its original position. You use position relative. So from here I can say, you know what, from the original position I want this element to move from the top towards the bottom by 50 px, all right, or let me say by 20 px from the top, and then I also want from the left to move by maybe 20 px. Let us try this and see how it will appear on our guy here. So now as you can see, it has moved from the left 20, and from the top it has moved by 20 from its original position. So position relatives position an element from its original position. Yeah, and you can use right. This will move the element from the right, and then you can also use bottom. Probably you won't be able to see clear effect here because this let's see, You see, from the bottom it has moved up by 20, and from the right it has moved left by 20. So that is position relative. And number two, we have what we call position fixed. So position fixed, it means no matter how long the page will appear, I want that position to be fixed on a certain, on a certain specific location on the page. So if I say position fixed here, take the element and position it on the top by 20 px and on the left by 20 px, and it will be fixed there no matter how much I scroll or move down the page, it won't be moving. So if I go back here, so from the top, it has been positioned by 20 px, and then from the left by 20 px, and it is fixed there. So you can use this on something like maybe you want to add social media icon to your page, maybe the WhatsApp that you use, on the bottom left of your page, maybe the nav, the nav bar that you use on your page, you can use fixed position. And then the next, we have what we call absolute positioning. So absolute positioning is, let me say, if you define, for example, if I say absolute for this box 2, what will happen is that if this box 2 is inside another element, it will be positioned relatively to that parent, all right? If it is inside another element. But if it is just outside this element, it will be positioned relative to the page, all right? It will be positioned relative to the page. So in this case, if I go back here, you probably won't see any change. And that is because this element has been positioned relative to the page. So 20 px from the top, 20 px from the left, all right? But now if I create another div, let's create another div here. If I create another div and I move my box to inside here, and now I can say this, I can say for this ID, I can say this is box 3. So now if I go up here and I say that I want my box 3 to be positioned relatively, so if I say, for example, relative box 3 and I want 20 left and 20 or like that, and then I can say also box 2, maybe let me say let me edit the width for box 2 width, let me put maybe 300 px, and also the height, I just want you to see what will happen here. Then if I go back, now I have box 3 here. Box 3, where is box 3? Okay, this should be box 3, not box 2. That was a mistake. I go back. Yeah, this is what I wanted you to see. So now I've positioned box 2 inside of box 3. And box 3 has been positioned in a relative position. So what happened for the box 2, if you declare it to be absolute, it will be positioned relatively to the parent box. In our case here, it is box 3. So this is 20, this is 20 here. So that is how we use absolute. Absolute, if it is used in conjunction with the relative position, it will be positioned relatively to the parent element. But if you don't use any parent element here, then this box which you have declared to be positioned in an absolute manner, it will be positioned relatively to the main page. And that is it, guys. So fixed position, fix the position, relative position, position the element from its original position. Absolute, position the element relatively to its parent whose position is relative, all right? Or if it doesn't have a parent, it will be positioned relatively to the overall page. I hope you guys have been able to understand that. So the next thing that I want us to see is if I say, for example, let me see, let me just delete something here. Let me delete box 3. So we have box 2. and I'm going to say box 2. So let's delete this. All right, and let me see, I can say I can say, let me say fixed. All right, fixed for this now, so that they overlap. There's something I want you to see. And then I'll give this guy box 1. Let me copy this like this. Let me paste it here. These are just the same positions. You see now they are on the same position and there's some bit of, let me just give them the color. I say background color, I'll say red for position 1. I copy this, I go to box 2, I paste here, I say black. So you see now it's a bit it's a bit funny. You're only seeing black with a, with a border of red, and that is because we have box 1, which is in the bottom, and box 2, which is on the top. All right, box 2 on the top, box 1 on the bottom. So the way I can be able to bring box 2 to be on top of box 1 is to use Z index. So I can say Z index. Z index means, just be on top of other elements. So if I say Z index and I give this 1, or if I give this 2, and if I go here to box 2 and I give this 1, what this will do, the guy with the smaller Z index will go at the bottom, and the guy with the bigger Z index will go at the top. So now you see, now we have red on top, and that is because the box 1 has gone on the bottom of box 2. All right. So if I interchange this again and they say that box 1, I want him to go down, and box 2, I want him to come up like this, you see black now comes on top. So that is how you can also be able to interchange the floating position of different elements on top of each other by using the Z index. So with that, guys, I believe you've been able to understand positioning, and let us meet in the next lesson where we'll consider floating.